3 is vir die stream, 3 is vir die klas. Maar ek het nie niks te doen met die klas nie. So daar is nie my gedoen. Hierdie gaan jy nie kan hoor of hy werk nie. Ons sal hoor of hy werk.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please move to our chairs? We need to start with the webinars. Okay, good day. Prof. Hans-Hendrik Knoop, are you here with us? Okay, he cannot hear me. All right. Hans, we are very privileged to have you today. We are very much looking forward to your presentation all the way there from Denmark on the topic Flourishing of Learners and Teachers. Hans, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So I start my presentation now. Yes, I can. Yes. Okay. I start from the first slide now. I can hear myself in the background here. It is fine. I hope it works out for you, and I will be swift. Okay. So. Okay. So how's this? Okay. I go all the way down now, and then I will just speak. Now it's shut off, and then I will just speak. Okay. Okay. So I will talk to you about 8 minutes about growing, thriving minds towards the 21st century competencies. And the idea is basically that we need social and personal competences on top of the academic competences. And if we look, next slide, please. If we look at nature, and next slide, please. Yes. If we look at nature like this, we can see fantastic detail. We can see fantastic harmony in a way that's both inspiring and also very invigorating, in a sense that so many differences go together in harmony. Next slide, please. And this is just another example of flourishing, and we understand why the old thinkers had this metaphor of flourishing for the good life. Next slide, please. And this is just another example here from Denmark. And next slide, please. And this is the beauty of a Danish apple tree. And you can see that there are millions of details and not one ugly one. And there are millions of colors and not one ugly one. Compare that to Walmart or something like that. It's really, nature is really a signpost for us as regards many of the important things that we have to understand, and to be able to live in education and learn effectively, we have to not go against our nature but supplement our nature. So I've developed a model which tells you about that. So next slide, please. And this is with animation, so I'll just say forward every time you need to go forward, okay? So forward. Basically, this is a okay, go forward, please. Basically, yeah. If we want to live in harmony, if we want to progress and learn in harmony, there are two basic processes in nature, and these may be the only two basic processes in the world, actually, which is called self-regulation and growth. And for human beings, you can only grow if you do it on strength. Weaknesses are built on, so we may call that strength-based growth. So these are the two basic processes in nature. And if you think about the people whom you are responsible for in daily life, and ask yourself, how would I be able to tell if these people were fulfilled as regard their ability to self-regulate in many different ways and to grow in a way that builds on their strength? What would I be able to see forward? And what you would be able to see then would be a number of life qualities, as I call them. One is your physical health. Your physical health depends on the body being able to regulate and grow in the proper way. And because it feels good, it's intrinsically motivating. People intrinsically want to be healthy. So that's not. Then there are positive emotion, which is the same thing, and engagement, and next, and meaning, and forward, next. And here you have 5 life qualities. 4 of them resembles the PERMA model of Seligman, and the 5th one is the bodily health. But what I'm pointing to here is that every one of these life qualities in yellow are intrinsically motivated. You don't have to pay people to want to have that. People really want it. And if you have all these 5, you will, if you experience that, you will also experience life as interesting. And if you experience life as interesting, you want more life. And that means you become curious as to learn more, and you get this urge to act and use what you have learned. So this is a potential energy waiting to be released. And when you do so in education and beyond, you can expect intensive learning and intense creativity next. And you can actually view academic success and personal success and social success as a byproduct of this intense process fueled by life quality and well-being. Next. And next. And this is reinforcing, because if you succeed with something, of course, that reinforces your interest in doing more of it. And that means that you can, you have 2 psychosocial processes here reinforcing themselves that we today understand pretty much as well as we understand cardiovascular disease. Next. Yep, hold here. Okay, so one thing that's important in education and beyond is to understand that we can predict what mechanisms or what preconditions are actually promoting these life qualities. And this is just to give you a sample where we know about physical health, we know about positive emotions, and we know how to create for flow and engagement. We know how to make for meaning. And also, we know a lot about how to work on social relations. Now, this is a complex model, but it's also simple. Any of you would be able to check if this is true, and you'll be able to find in the literature the references for that. I wrote this up in a summary article in the Handbook of Eudaimonic Wellbeing, which you can see referenced at the bottom of the slide here. And the point is that if you look at flourishing, like the weather, these life qualities function like components of the weather, like whether it's raining, whether the temperature is one way or the other, whether the wind is strong or weak, and so on. And just like you can have good weather outside, you can have good weather in your mind and in your body, basically. And that's the way I like to look at flourishing. And when we look at education and growing minds for the 21st century, every one of these life qualities is almost indispensable. We simply need this. And nobody suffers from providing young people with these life qualities in education. They will thrive, and they will perform, and they will assume responsibility when we do. So that would be my short talk here, and then I'll thank you for your attention and give the word to Kirsten Lonka. Thank you very much.
I hope you can hear that happy you get it there.
Thank you.
But I think you gave such a comprehensive and interesting presentation and topics that are very near to our heart in education. So thank you very much for that presentation, Hans. We really enjoyed it. It was really worthwhile. Thank you.
My privilege. Thank you.
Okay. So the next speaker is Prof. Kirsty Lonka. I hope she's online yet. Ah, Kirsty, welcome. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, nice to see you. Yeah. Hello, Myrna. It's great to see you on the video. And Ian. Yes, I could see you. Oh, lovely. Oh, okay. Good.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Great to see so many of you there. And I wish I was there. I'm in the middle of a term, so I cannot attend really now. The first slide, I cannot actually see. Yeah, here it is. The first one, previous, please. Yeah.
Oh, the previous one, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to show this idea that we have a very big project right now in Finland, a growing mind on how to transform our education to facilitate this personal and social and institutional renewal. And I think very much like Prof. Hans was saying about making our youth to flourish. Next. So it's actually should read the Purpose of Growing Mind project. So we want to support the positive development of our youth, and we have all kinds of different practices of learning and teaching that would inspire young people and help them to solve, because in the future there are going to be so complex problems in the world, and that's why we are now transforming Finnish school system as well. And we also find new innovative ways, and we try to integrate digital learning and teaching with everyday school practices, and City of Helsinki is our collaborator in this project. So all our Helsinki schools are with us. Next. And there is also a network, and you can see that it goes all the way to Noordwes-universiteit and Optensha. Then we have Innokas network with very enthusiastic teachers. University of Helsinki, we have education and neuroscience, and also computer science and playfulness and gaming from University of Tampere, and also a business network. So we want to have this kind of very large, extensive national network of people who are working for this. And of course, our City of Helsinki, who is involved. Next. So this is the big picture. And then I wrote this book, and maybe somebody has already read it. And actually, it was very much inspired by my sabbatical year. I spent a lot of time with you in South Africa and telling stories about Finland. And for many people, it was a surprise that Finland has been a very poor country. We've been taken slaves. We were a colony of Sweden for 600 years. And still in 18th century, Finnish were very popular slaves to take to Turkey, for instance. But when, after all this poverty, sorry, I didn't say next yet. After all this poverty and hard times, we never gave up investing in education, even when we were very poor. And then 2016, we have this new curriculum. And then I'm telling a bit where we are going next. And now next slide, please. So there are some interesting features of our school. Like first, the level is very high in teacher education. We have master level teachers. And it's more difficult to get into our teacher education than to medical school, for instance. And the same teacher may stay with the children for several years, like from grades 1 to 3 or grades 3 to 4, and so on. And also what is important is that creativity, music, arts, handicrafts, and sports, and even home economy or cooking are part of our curriculum, even in high school. Next. But then, of course, the scientist changes, and we need to change constantly in order to keep up. So we have introduced phenomenon-based learning, and then coding is now mandatory, artificial intelligence, robotics, STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And this social digital revolution that we need to adapt new. We are not like France. We are not banning mobile phones. We are trying to integrate them to teaching and learning. And we also want to focus on social and emotional learning, and that's important for flourishing, so that students can learn how to constructively interact with each other. And important is to foster innovation and creativity. So in kind of the school is going out from the classroom, and the outside world is coming into the schools. Next, please. So here is a picture of our new 7 broad-based 21st century skills that are integrated in our new curriculum. And in my book, I dedicate one evidence research-based chapter on each of these competencies, why they are important. And I guess that you are sharing that it's also important, for instance, cultural competence and understanding different cultures. And I've learned so much in South Africa about this. In next slide, I'm talking about phenomenon-based learning. Some people say that Finland is giving up subject matter teaching, but that's not true. we have these inquiries that starts from larger phenomena like life and death. We integrate between various school subjects, and we only have 1 or 2 projects like this to strengthen our ability to think broadly and holistically. So we are not giving up subject matters, but we are adding this. And this is very much like adding arts with science and technology and mathematics, but it's more broad because we also involve humanities and arts. Next. This is a Finnish gift for the world. This tool is free of charge. You can download it from internet, and there are 168 pages of materials where you can test how your school culture enables how well you would do in teaching it with our new curriculum. And please don't think that we are ready. Our teachers are struggling to implement all these complex things. I'm going to tweet the link to this as well, so that you are going to get the link and access to these materials in English. Next. What we are doing here, we've been talking a lot. Professor Jan Rotman has visited us, and hopefully some messages taking to the new Optentia building. But we are also reforming our physical learning environments so that learning is ubiquitous. It takes place all the time, but it's virtual, it's blended, it's mobile, it's social, it's pedagogical and emotional. And we need to really engage our learners, and we are developing new ways of engaging young people in our curriculum. So this is brief, 8 minutes, but the next slide then, in the end, there is this add to my book, and I'm hoping that you get access to that. And it's also available as an ebook. And I'm hoping that it's going to be translated in different languages as well, maybe even Afrikaans or Dutch. So, dankjewel. Thank you very much for your time, and I would love to come and see you all again. And it's getting cold here in Finland, so I would love to visit Africa. Bye now. And if you have any questions, I'm ready here.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. Kirsty, we have time for one question.
Yes?
You can see I'm still stuck in the first industrial revolution. I didn't even know there was a second and a third one. So between all these mics and all these computers, yes. Okay, there's one question, Kirsty.
Yes?
You will just need to speak quite loudly, and I'll repeat your question. So that
Yeah, you can repeat then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Kirsty?
No, I'm afraid you need to repeat.
The question is, in our country where there's so much diversity, especially with socioeconomic challenges that we have, where do we actually as a country start with phenomenon-based learning?
I would think that you could take some phenomenon like poverty and hunger as a phenomenon, for instance, or how to make a better future, or trying to tackle some really wicked and difficult problems. I understand, but I was thinking it might be inspirational that we were very poor or still like 60 years ago, and I think that investing in education, and especially in women education, is very important, and also to prevent inequality. And you have huge challenges. I'm very aware of that. And we are a very small and compact place. It's much easier. But thinking of studying phenomena like poverty, hunger, societal inequality, and start doing it at school from different perspectives and in a kind of problem-based way and a solution-focused way, so that young people who are smart, you are the future of your country, trying to start brainstorming creatively about new kinds of also solutions for the problems during this project. And I'm happy to be involved if you have ever want to do these kinds of projects in collaboration with my teacher students from Finland.
Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciated your presentation. And as you know, we are very much envious of the education system in Finland. And also, just to remind all of you, Kirsty's book is for sale during lunch and in the afternoon down at the Lapa. Kirsty, thank you very much.
Thank you. Just great to be part of this, and have a great research day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Ben. Okay.
Am I still there?
Yeah, Kirsty, you're still online.
Okay. I could
Just
tell
waiting
Joe.
for the next presentation. So if you want to say something so long while we wait, you're welcome.
What we are actually developing right now, we are developing a hybrid e-learning environment that could help also teachers in your country in the future to study these broad-based competencies. And especially we are developing entrepreneurship training for young people, for high school students. I've been visiting in Namibia and they've been very interested in that. So I was thinking that maybe that's something that we can do in the future, online materials for your teacher education and for your high school students.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds wonderful. Yeah. So you are
Yeah.
fully into the fourth industrial revolution, eh, Kirsty?
Yes.
Thank you
Okay,
very
very
much for
sorry.
that. Thanks, Kirsty. Okay, we're ready for
Bye-bye.
the next speaker. Bye-bye.
I know.
Okay, just give us a minute or two. They are just busy with the technological challenges of this age. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, all the slides of the presentations will be put on our website, so you don't have to take photos or make notes. It will all be available on our website. Okay.
Hallo, hallo.
Kyk net vir hulle as jy praat van daarom.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have Prof. Ben Mardell, Ben, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, Ben says he can hear us.
Yes, good, good, good. Okay.
Okay, can...
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
Yes.
Ben, you have the floor. Can I just ask, I need to change the slides from this side. So just say next if I need to go to the next slide for me, please. We are very happy to hear. As I said earlier, you are the expert on pedagogy of play. We have attended your presentation earlier on this year, which really excited us. And when I asked the question here, who's playing, actually none of us put up our hands. So we are
That's too
very
bad.
much looking forward to your presentations, Ben.
So can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So I'm greetings from Cambridge, Massachusetts in the US, where the sun is rising. But it's the same sun that's in South Africa, which is reassuring. I'm Ben Mardell, and I'm really pleased to be participating on this seminar on human potential, as I'm part of a research organization at the Harvard Graduate School of Education called Project Zero, where we would say that we have been researching how learning in schools, museums, arts festivals, in the community can promote human potentials. And as you know, I'm currently involved in a project called Pedagogy of Play in South Africa, whose ultimate aim is to bring more play and playfulness into educational experiences for South African learners. And in the course of our research, a hypothesis has emerged, which you can now see on the screen. A pedagogy of play, playful learning can help make schools and classrooms places of nwu-pukke. I'm going to use the next 7 minutes on the ambitious tasks of explaining this hypothesis by explaining my understanding of playful learning and its connections to nwu-pukke. But before I do, I want to share a little bit about the research of where these ideas emerged from. So the next slide, please. The Pedagogy of Play, South Africa, is part of a larger research effort that began in 2015 in a Danish school. You can learn more about the work in Denmark by checking out the website link here. Next slide. The impulse for our work is that we believe play is a core resource for learning. In play, learners explore, experiment, take risks, and use their imaginations. In a playful state, learners are engaged and relaxed, excellent for learning. Play helps people actualize their potentials. So we believe play and playfulness should have a larger role in school. And while learning through play is universal, play and playful learning are cultural phenomenons as well. Who children play with, when they play, how they play, and what age they're supposed to stop playing, if ever, depends on culture. So in order to think about bringing more playful learning to South African learners, our project in South Africa is asking, the next slide please, what does playful learning look and feel like in South African classrooms and schools? Next slide. To answer this question, since the start of this school year, we have been conducting qualitative research in 3 culturally and economically diverse schools in the Pretoria, Johannesburg area. Our team has conducted over 90 classroom observations and 60 interviews with teachers and learners. Some disclaimers. These are emergent ideas. Our work is taking place in 3 schools, and we realize that South Africa is a geographically and culturally diverse country. So we make no claims that we have captured what playful learning looks or feels like for the entire country. And I feel that we have something interesting to share. So let me share what we're finding about playful learning from these classrooms. The next slide, please. Next slide. We have identified 3 categories of what we call petals that describe the nature of learners' experience as they build understanding, knowledge, and skills through playful learning. These categories are ownership, curiosity, and enjoyment. When all these categories are in play, represented by the intersection of the petals in the diagram, playful learning is likely occurring. Next slide. As playfulness is a subjective feeling, within these categories, there are indicators of what playful learning feels like for learners. These include a sense of empowerment, engagement, and excitement. Next slide. There are also observable behaviors that seem to be connected to these feelings in each of these categories. So playful learning may look like giving and receiving help, discussing and debating, and participating actively. Next slide. And in our analysis of the data, the social nature of playful learning emerged very strongly. Well, of course, an individual experience, it also seemed that a key element that allowed playful learning to emerge was connections to the group. As one grade 5 learner explained to us, I want all my classmates to pass, so I have to help them. Something I don't think we would hear from an American learner. And comments from some of the teachers led us to the ideas of Ubuntu. Go back to that slide, yeah. As many of you know, I'm sure, Ubuntu is a Southern African philosophy. Archbishop Desmond Tutu describes its core belief as a person is a person through other people. Ubuntu has been described as denoting social interdependence, community, a sense of compassion, altruism, kindness, generosity, curiosity, respect, and concern for others. And Ubuntu seems to be the foundational well that supports learning through play in these classrooms. It can engender ownership as learning is a communal effort, which learners feel encouraged to lead their own learning and support others in the process. It can promote curiosity as a learning community encourages individual and collective inquiry, taking risks and exploring even wild ideas. It supports enjoyment as social bonding can create the atmosphere of warmth and excitement. Next slide, please. So back to my hypothesis that a pedagogy of playful learning can support making schools and classrooms a place of Ubuntu. Why is this important? As South Africa has emerged from apartheid and has become a multicultural democracy, Ubuntu is seen by many of you as a concept that can be used to help build a nation where citizens share values regarding democracy and human rights. The importance of Ubuntu has been theorized by a number of academics and leaders and has been featured in the South African Ministry of Education's Manifesto on Values, Education, and Democracy. At the same time, it seems to be the case that learning playfully, to work in groups, share ideas, imagine, create together, sing and laugh together, some of our indicators of playful learning, can enhance feelings of Ubuntu within a classroom and school community. In fact, building a pedagogy around playful learning may provide educators the framework they need to help actualize Ubuntu in their classrooms. Of course, this is a hypothesis that needs to be tested. And it comes in part from my perspective as an American, someone who lives in a relatively older democracy than yours, that I think you are aware is currently, unfortunately, in crisis. And as an American, I've learned two important things I want to share. First, schools and classrooms can be ideal places to learn what it means to be part of a group, to take care of others, but also advocate for yourself. It's not what we call Ubuntu, it's what we call democracy here, but I think it has some of the same features of Ubuntu. And secondly, schooling for a concept like democracy or Ubuntu can't just mean an isolated class or lesson about the philosophy. It can't just mean having an inspirational poster up on the wall. It has to be how life is lived in the classroom. Put into another way, a playful math lesson is where learners are experiencing ownership, curiosity, and enjoyment is much more effective in promoting Ubuntu than an unplayful lesson about the concept, which means that something we'll focus on in the next in the Pedagogy Play South Africa project is creating tools that help teachers plan and implement playful math and science and English lessons so learners can gain content knowledge and also a sense of Ubuntu. So I'm past my 8 minutes, but I want to let you know that my colleague Steph Nowak has a poster session, and so if you want to engage more about these ideas, please go to see what she has and engage her there. And I think I see Steph in the third row there, so hi.
Thank you very much, Ben. Maybe, Steph, just stand up and wave your hand so that people can see you. Steph is part of the Pedagogy of Play project. So if you have any further questions about this fantastic project, please feel welcome to please just stand up that we can see you also.
Oh, is this a Boto there too? Oh, I didn't see who Boto. Okay,
yeah.
Boto is also part of the project. So hello to both of you guys.
So please have a talk to them, because I think this is something that we really need to address in our curriculum. Thank you very much. So now, fortunately last, but definitely the cherry on the cake, sorry. Okay, so the first cherry on this chocolate cake is Prof. Jonathan Janssen. So we're just waiting for him. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're just struggling to get Prof. Janssen online, so we are going to ask Prof. Grosser to do a presentation first, and then we'll have Prof. Janssen. So fortunately, Mary, you have to press your own buttons. Kan ons net die slides... Yeah, the slides is... Yeah, that's it. Okay. Mary, the floor is yours.
Kan hy nie aanknop? Ek moet staan. Kan hy aanknop?
Jy moet op jou mics aan hê. Wel, of jy moet stil staan of jy moet hulle vashou.
And I would like to express my thanks to Prof. Ian for inviting me to do this presentation. I'm just lucky I'm not one of the people from the outside. So I would like to start off by taking the concept growing that is part of the title of this seminar. And I think all of you will agree with me that when talking about growing minds, one immediately thinks of expanding or extending the capacity to think. That is good. But I would like to add the word grooming to growing. Because I think grooming, and sorry, what happens now to my slides? All right, I'm too fast. I will deal with this presentation in 3 sections. I'm first going to look at what exactly does it mean to grow minds? Why is it necessary to grow minds? And then how one could possibly go about that. So, I said to you I would like to add the word grooming to growing. Because grooming indicates to me something more specific. Growing is very general, but what is it that I want to grow? Certainly I want to grow some... Oh, am I talking too loud maybe? Oh, all right, sorry, then I might have to stand still.
But now it's better.
Okay, so grooming to me indicates something more specific, training for something specific, or developing certain competencies or providing certain tools to develop competencies for the 21st century. And in order to identify these competencies for the 21st century, I think one needs to look at, if I talk about growing minds, what type of minds do I need to grow then for the 21st century? And on the screen at the back, you will see I've mentioned 5 types of minds, and I get this framework from the work of Gardner, who indicates that we need students with disciplined minds, and that indicates academic knowledge. So academic knowledge is not out of the question. It's still very important for the 21st century. But I also need a student with a synthesizing mind, taking lots of information, concising it, extracting important things from the information. I need a creative mind, or a creating mind, thinking novel, coming up with novel ideas, solving problems, novel questions. I need a respectful mind that depicts my relationship as a worker in society, responsibility, accountability. And I need an ethical mind, which depicts my view or perception about diversity in society. The 5 minds, to me, are in order for 21st century competencies, but I find there's one mind that is missing. And I would like to call it the introspective mind. And that mind, to me, is more about the person. becoming self-aware. Who am I in society? What makes me unique in comparison to others? What are my beliefs, my attitudes, my values, and how can I contribute to bettering society around me? So it's becoming aware that I have some greatness within myself. And I like the quote by, why does this disappear? No, but why, they don't want to see me. The final quote on the slide there is more in you than you think. And that is so important to me, that need to be developed in our learners. And it's a quote that I'm taking from Kurt Hahn, who's a German philosopher, and I'll address his framework a bit later in the presentation. So, all in all, there are 6 types of minds to me that need to be developed. And linked to those 6 minds are 7 competencies, which I call the 7 C's. And each of those competencies can be linked to one of the minds that I've just indicated there. So we get the core character, that is a very strong competency of 21st century learning, linked to the ethical and introspective mind. Communication, which indicates communication is normally part of social relationships, and that is closely related to being a respectful mind. How do I communicate with people? Collaboration, in the same sense, a social connection. How do I communicate across cultures? The creative mind, obviously linking with creating, the creating mind. Critical thinking, being able to synthesize, evaluate information, extract essence. Citizenship, the global awareness idea linked to the ethical mind. And then connectivity, which is not only classroom-based academic knowledge, but really becoming information savvy in the wider sense of the word, linked then to the disciplined mind. One can refine those 7 C's, and I do it in 2 categories. The core character, communication, collaboration, and citizenship, to me encompass the development of competencies to behave well. It's about emotional learning. It's about values, attitudes, dispositions, habits of mind. And on the other side, I put the creativity, the critical thinking, and the connectivity, which to me links to competencies to think, which is the cognitive learning. So if I have to summarize the competencies that I think a 21st century learner needs, it would be competencies to think well and competencies to behave well. And that brings me to why. Now, I've actually said that. If we look at what is expected of a 21st century learner, I think you will notice from the picture all the minds that I've just spoken about and all the competencies. For example, globally aware, communicate, problem solver, critical thinker, collaborator. I think you will identify the 7 C's there, as well as, and I added the red one there, because I often find that absent from material that I consult. Self-awareness, I think, is a crucial competence that students need to develop. And that's why I added it into the picture there of what is expected of a 21st century learner. You will also see the disciplined mind there, the information and media literate, self-directed, again, self-awareness, the innovator, the creative mind, civically engaged, the respectful mind. So all of those minds are part and parcel of the roles that a 21st century student or learner has to play. Now, how do we get there? How do we develop these competencies? I think about it in 2 ways, and I think it will latch on to what Prof. Tron said this morning, that we must look new at our curricula in schools. And for me, there are two legs here. Focus on the curriculum, and then on extracurricular activities, which I think is very often neglected. We tend to focus on what happens in class. But what about outside class? There are so many opportunities to develop these competencies beyond the classroom. So, what do we need? We need a pedagogy inside and outside classroom that foregrounds the development of competencies to think well and competencies to behave well. And I don't distinguish between the two. It's not either or. Both of them are important. I am not very fond of prescribing frameworks according to which teachers should work. But in the case where there is really no direction of how do we get there, I think a framework is quite helpful. And the framework that I would like to suggest for curricular development of competencies is the high-performance learning framework of Professor Deborah Eyre that we have implemented in a project, a pilot study at Optentia, and have achieved quite good results at this point in time, showing potential for developing competencies to think and behave well. Now, very briefly, this framework is very generic. And it's very open. It can be applied in any school. It's not prescriptive. Schools adapt it to their context and to the needs of learners. But it gives a good map as to what is needed to get to the competencies. So at the bottom, at the heart of the school, lies these competencies to behave and to think. And they are infused throughout subject content in a whole school approach. So it's not one or two teachers that deal with this. It's infused across an entire school. To get these competencies well developed, there are 7 pillars that support the development of these competencies. So it's not just the teacher. You will see. First of all, changing a mindset, believing that it is possible to develop competencies. And it's not just for a certain group of learners. It's possible to develop it among all learners. Inquiry-based learning, which is the didactic strategy that is quite important here. Putting learners in the driver's seat of their own learning. You would see the last pillar as well. Doing things with students and not to them. Giving lots of opportunities to practice, to develop expertise in the competencies, and then to give regular feedback. So I'm rushing through this very quickly, but that provides a very good roadmap for teachers who are unsure of how do I develop these competencies. If I look at the next framework, which is implemented in a number of independent schools in South Africa nowadays with quite a lot of success. And that takes learning outside the classroom. And it's very much focused on experiential learning. Looking at the 6 ideals of the round square framework, that's the name of the framework, and the person I mentioned previously, Kurt Hahn, is the developer of the framework. So within the context of 6 ideals, also very generic, projects are identified by schools themselves or in collaboration with schools, by taking then the development outside the classroom. So, growing minds is then a learning journey. It's not just about content. It's about academic learning, it's about moral learning, it's about personal learning, and it's about skills-based learning. I want to end off. The purpose of learning is growth. And our minds, unlike our bodies, can continue growing. And we should utilize that. It's important to groom students so that they develop competencies to think well and behave well, because those competencies are foundational to, the slide is again gone, it's the basis for a successfully evolving humanity. And if we do not do that, I'm afraid we'll end up one day saying, I see humans around me, but no humanity. So thank you. Waar sit hierdie ding?
Thank you very much, Mary. We've been working along for quite a few years now, and this was really a wonderful integrated presentation. And especially, I think this is one thing that, although it says in our curriculum policies that growing thinkers is a key goal, it's absolutely not applied or practiced in our teaching in the curriculum. So thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, Mary. So we have Prof. Jonathan Jansen. Not yet. Okay, he's disappeared now. Okay. Say no. Say that. Okay. Sing it further.
Ik denk wys tog dat hy op is, maar dit is so swart skerm, so ek weet nie wat daai kant van die gang is nie.
Net disconnect as I kan het weer.
Ja, sê maar vir my wat dit doen.
Nie maar hy is receivers teen mekaar hou.
Ja, dis vir die pack self, nie die mics nie. Ja, presies, dis hoe jy anders maak hy daai geluid julle dan nou.
Hello. Hello? Hello?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are online again. And of course, we are now very privileged to have Prof. Jonathan Jansen to speak to us. Prof. Jansen, can you hear me?
Yes. I can.
Okay, we see you, but we don't hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah, there you are. We can hear you. Prof. Jansen, can you just turn your phone horizontally, the other side around? Yeah, perfect, perfect. Thank you. Prof. Jansen, my name is Myrna now. We are really very privileged to have you here this afternoon at the Potential Research Day. We have been looking forward to your presentation this whole morning. And when I introduced you earlier, I actually said I don't have to say anything about you, because if I just say the name Jonathan Jansen, then everyone knows who you are. So we are really very privileged to have you here, and we're looking very much forward to your presentation. Can I just ask, when you say, I need to change your slide, so if you want to go to the next slide, just say next to me so that I can change that slide, please. Thanks.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I was introduced earlier as the icing on the chocolate cake. I found that amusing.
That is true.
Anyway, I want to very briefly make a distinction or talk about presence as a competence in teaching. So much of our culture is focused at the moment, as indeed is the case in other parts of the world, on performance. In other words, how well do the learners perform? How well do they do on the ANA test or on the grade 12 NSC results? And the entire system is geared towards enhancing performance. Nothing wrong with that in and of itself, except it overlooks a whole lot of other important competencies besides cognitive achievement within a classroom or a school context. So I want to talk about something that over the years in studying schools and teaching in particular, what it is I think we are missing in the context of a very important competence, which I call presence. Now, in South Africa, of all the countries I know, you cannot even assume physical presence as being something that you can take for granted. In other words, we live in a country in which on any given day in a township school, for example, there are 3 to 4 to 5 teachers absent for various reasons. It is impossible to teach. It is impossible to run a school when the educators are simply not there. So even the physical presence of a teacher cannot be assumed in the turbulence of South African public education. And that's a problem. But let's assume the teacher just show up physically. You know, and I know that in everyday experience, you get home after a day of work or a day of studenting, and your partner or your roommate says to you, you know, you are here, but you are not here. In other words, you're physically here, but your mind is somewhere else. Your attention is on the iPhone, and so on and so forth. So being physically present doesn't in and of itself mean that you are emotionally present in the life of those around you, in the lives of those around you. So here's a problem. Now, very often teachers who are really effective are present in their classrooms, first of all, physically, but secondly, in every other way as well. And yeah, I want to make a distinction between different kinds of ways in which we can be present. First of all, in a really good school, teachers are intellectually present. In other words, you not only know your subject or whatever it is you teach, you know more about it than the learners, you know more deeply about it, you read more widely, you are aware of. So, for example, I'm always amazed when I work with science teachers and you have this eclipse of the moon, that there isn't a curiosity on the part of the teacher, let alone the kids, about, you know what, I really have to stop everything that I'm doing here, according to the dictates of CAPS, and actually begin to engage students deeply around what the eclipse of the moon means and what its effects are on Earth and the oceans. But we don't do that because we straitjacketed in order to teach in a way that is intellectually so dead, so narrow, so incredibly test and exam focused, that we forget that education is actually more than simply mastering the syllabus. It is, at the end of the day, mastering knowledge, and that requires being intellectually present. So, for example, a teacher who doesn't read, if I came to your home as a student teacher or a lecturer or whatever, and I don't find books next to your bedside, then I question whether you are in fact intellectually present in your classroom, whether you're simply doing the same stuff over and over again. But secondly, a really good teacher and indeed leader is emotionally present. That is, you are in contact with the emotions of those you teach or those you lead. So, for example, a teacher who is emotionally present knows that there's something wrong in the expression on the face of student X or colleague Y. You know intuitively something is wrong, and therefore you're able to respond efficaciously. Now, you can't do that when you are so wrapped up in your own bubble, so wrapped up and concerned about your own delivery as a teacher, that you are not emotionally connected to those around you. Then there is, of course, spiritual presence. That is being able to connect to those you teach or lead in a way that understands their deepest needs, also spiritually. I, of course, don't mean this in a religious sense, but in the sense that you know about the aspirations of this learner to want to go to university, the aspirations of this young child to want to read competently at the grade level. You just know that there are needs that go beyond intellectual needs to really spiritual needs as well. Now, teachers who do this set of presences well don't necessarily have to be there physically. Here's the good news. We've come full circle. Those of you who are aware of the Christian religion in your lives, you will know that some of the most powerful scriptures speak about, God being present even when he's not, like in Matthew 18:20 or in Psalm 23. And so it is incredibly powerful, this notion that your presence isn't necessarily uh, uh, physically required in order to exert influence for the good over those whom you are privileged to teach and lead. The really good news is that presence can be taught. In other words, you're not born with presence, even though it seems that some people just are able to manage their presence or their presences, if you will, in such powerful ways in the classroom, but even in public, meetings at a party, and so on. So you can learn this. You can learn how to position yourself in a classroom. You can learn how to modulate your voice for effect. You can learn how to to put a hand on the shoulder of a young boy who is struggling to learn. And it's just a way of calming him down. You can learn how uh, uh, to stop teaching, just to completely stop until you have the attention of your learners back again. So body language, the way in which you talk, the level of your voice, and the positioning in the classroom are all really important techniques that can be used in learning how to be present in a classroom in ways that are effective. And so the greatest compliment paid to me as a former biology teacher when I meet my learners over the years to this day is not the fact that I taught them the Krebs cycle well or that they understood photosynthesis better. The greatest compliment is that they remember I was there and that by my presence, I was able to influence their lives for good. You put that in a classroom and you'll see that young people show up. You show up in these ways in your classroom, and you will notice that that students want to learn. But it's when we go to class looking as if we lost a relative, with the burdens of the world on our backs, and the message that you communicate without saying a word is that this profession is not important to you, that the kids are not the most important thing in your workday, and they pick up that your presence signals negativity rather than inspiring hope. Now, I have to say, in all my years of studying schools, the schools in which I see this most powerfully on a consistent basis is in Afrikaans primary schools, where I see this incredible connection over the years between teachers and young children, and how I wish we are able to demonstrate that presence towards all our children, not just in one segment of our community, in such a way that our children want to learn, our teachers want to teach, and our country, as a consequence, becomes a better place for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Jonathan Jansen. This is really, in a short time, you made us think about all the topics that we've actually spoken about this morning interlinks or connects so well with what you've presented here. And we sometimes or many times just forget about presence. So this is, again, a unique thing that we need to think about. Prof. Jansen, a while ago, you said that it's actually time to get angry about our education system that's failing our learners. So I think through your presentation this afternoon, telling us about our presence, that can actually make a difference in making our education system much more better. So thank you very, very much. We really enjoyed your presentation.
Take care. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, Optentia is really a multidisciplinary organization, because between buttons and between technology and between reading minds to change slides, it's not just about research, it's actually about all the vibes and all the auras that's in the room also out there far away. So Jan is going to talk to you quickly about our arrangements now, because we are a bit late. And we apologize for that, but I think it was worth your while to wait for these wonderful, wonderful presentations that we had.
Oh my Lord, I was the last speaker, and then when it was my turn, I had done something that